In 70 years, national parks are places where the public interest is truly paramount. Nature has reshaped itself and wildness beckons. National parks are deafening with bird and insect song. They're deeply historic, but have the brightest future. They're more visited, but the impact on the park is less. National parks have aurochs and bison and wild horses. They have bags and bags of better bogs. They have excellent broadband, but no second homes. There are fewer roads, but better paths, slower vehicles and happier people. And there are great forests of broadleaf trees with room for elks and elves. In 70 years, national parks bring calm and peace to everyone. There is true industry, not unfulfilled desires. They bring protection from flooding, sound food and timber, and fine drinking water. There are jobs, dogs, teas, walks, schools, pubs, views, loos, and brews. National parks slow people down, make them smile. National parks wander lonely as a switched-off phone. They ignite the spirit and quell the material. They find no one unsure or unsteady. They want all genders and all races. National parks unite and make possible.
So let's actually look at how we protect and conserve this landscape, and let's get those communities involved in the conservation work as well as sort of supporters and the future stewards of the national park. And it's really important to sort of not just about engaging, but about sort of engaging with those communities as the future stewards and the future sort of protectors of the landscapes. And it's about sort of that importance that we need to place on diversifying the outdoors, and let's sort of celebrate that diversity, that inclusivity. So let's celebrate and be inclusive. Let everybody come in and have, whoever wants to enjoy the countryside, let everybody sort of come in and be inclusive of the environment, that we can say these are beautiful national parks that are protected, that are for the enjoyment for everybody, and let those communities engage, and let's, as I said, celebrate the beauty and make a change. Let's move to the future, and that future can look really bright if we all embrace that inclusivity and diversity and celebrate that inclusivity and diversity.
In the future, I want to see a national park that is working not only for the environment but us too. I really want it to be an inclusive and welcoming space for everyone, no matter your background or why you're there. I want people to be able to enjoy picnics as well as go for long hikes. But alongside that, it needs to be working for our environment, and I want our biodiversity and wildlife to be thriving in those spaces. Therefore, I think it's important that everyone feels a sense of ownership over the national parks, and it's their responsibility to ensure that that wildlife is able to continue to grow and thrive. And ensure it stays protected as well. I really want national parks that aren't under threat from mass development. I want them to be a protected space that we value, and that we look to not only maintain what we have, but to continually improve that. I really want people to use national parks to improve their mental health and feel those benefits. And I don't want there to be barriers in place that people feel like they don't belong in those spaces, where they should be spaces for everyone. I want people to be able to access the parks in new ways. I want better transport from cities' centres in particular, to really open up those corridors and welcome new people, again, but in an environmentally and friendly way. We need those modes of transport to be green, and so that people can feel that they can visit without having an environmental impact. I would just want national parks that are there for everyone to enjoy, where our nature is thriving, and that we can ensure that they're there for a long time too.
Hello everybody, my name is Marian Spain and I'm currently Chief Executive of Natural England, but some of you might also know me as a former trustee of CMP and also a former board member of the New Forest National Park Authority. So with all of those experiences and perspectives in mind, I'm really pleased that you've asked me to share a few thoughts about the future of national parks with Council today. So I'm going to throw you three challenges about how I think we can all work together to help national parks evolve to be what we need them to be for the future. And my first challenge is to think about how our landscapes need to evolve to tackle those twin challenges of the climate crisis and the biodiversity challenge. Now is the time to have a serious conversation about what does that mean for the way we manage our parks, the way our parks look. More trees, wilder areas, changes to some of our farming system. Now's the time to start that conversation and help our landscapes evolve so they can be truly resilient. My second challenge is about people and thinking how we genuinely make these national parks for everybody, wherever they live, whatever their background, whatever their ability, their interest. We need to think about a whole new way of people enjoying parks, from different sports and recreational activities through to how people get to our parks, particularly those who don't have cars. So it's time to look back to our roots and remember that national parks started as a social movement for people as well as an environmental movement for nature. And my third challenge is to think about how the family needs to grow and evolve. Our current national parks all have their roots in 1949, but it's time to look forward now and think about what type of national parks we need for the future. More urban fringe parks, the role of our A&Bs, heritage coasts and national trails, so we have a truly diverse family that's fit for the future, that provides people with the national park experience we're going to need for the next 70 years. Good luck with that challenge. I'm delighted we've got CMP to help us and to keep us all honest and true to what our national parks are here for.
Hello, my name's Catherine and I'm the Chief Executive of the beautiful Brecon Beacons National Park. I hope that in 70 years' time people will look back and see that national parks drove a new way to live our lives. A place where we can see regenerative landscapes, bringing back biodiversity and showing us a way to live our lives in the face of the climate crisis, where people will take active travel seriously and use sustainable transport to travel around, live and work in the national park, where people come to stay healthy in mind and body and where people can be prescribed time to help them do the same. A place where the circular economy is a reality and where communities are working together to produce some of the best food that we can eat in our country. I hope that they'll be powered by renewable energy and that they will see a level of inclusivity for everybody so that people genuinely feel that the park is for them and that they can feel that sense of beauty and wonder and awe that so inspires us today. I hope that on a personal level, I'll one day camp in a national park and be able to look down on a landscape which is subtly different to today, where there's still livestock farming, perhaps other types of farming as well. I hope that we will see a mosaic landscape return with some different variety of animals. And I really hope that we'll hear skies alive with diverse birdsong, irritating insects buzzing around and some beautiful ones too, and to truly feel that national parks show us a way forward, a way that we can all enjoy and bring into our own backyards.
I just wanted to share with you today just 6 very simple but big ideas, hopefully, for the future of national parks looking 70 years down the line. The first one to say is I think the national parks family will have extended to over 20 in the family, including 2 marine national parks and a new major wetland national park. Secondly, and possibly most fundamentally, I think the purposes of national parks will have changed fundamentally over the period of time. We are now, 70 years down the road, focusing our efforts on natural resource management, the delivery of public goods and services to the nation as a whole. The third element is there will be significant landscape change beginning to happen in those parks. As a result of that change in purposes, we're going to see major wildlife refuges created together with major carbon banks, fundamentally changing some of our very precious national park areas. The fourth area I'd highlight is very much that the National Park Service will be present in every major city. There will be centres in all our major cities where staff are split between our national parks and also our cities, looking at education, training, skills, apprenticeships, and most significantly, land management, a part of the Green Cities movement. Which is my fifth point. We will see a major focus over that period of the next 70 years on where people live. And that will include something called the Green City Accreditation Scheme. We're going to focus very much on improving things where people live, the nature and resources on their doorstep. And finally, there will be a major shift in our lifestyles through formal education, including the Global Citizen education programme that every child will undertake, and there will also be a major new award scheme as part of that lifestyle shift under the King George One Planet Award Scheme. Who would have thought that national parks 70 years down the line will be very fundamental to the very existence of both our species and also the contribution to the planet's well-being?
The history of national parks and YHA is ever intertwined. Over the last 70 years, we've worked together on getting children, young people and adults out into the national parks across all countries. I hope that people are encouraged to enjoy the nature of the national parks. I hope that we are using the national parks as a way to support the country's well-being. I hope that we're using the national parks to continue to be the breathing spaces for all of our countries, for all of our people. I hope they sound noisy. I hope they sound full of kids running, jumping, screaming, singing, praying, dancing, making noise and having fun. Because too often we look at the national parks through our own lens, through a very specific lens of maybe outdoor activity, through a very specific lens, rightly, of rural protection. All of those things really matter. But actually, the real joy of the national parks comes through children and young people. My 9-year-old, the first time he saw a pony running through the forest. Now, my children have grown up, as you can hear, with animals all around them. Still for him, seeing ponies at Dartmoor and at New Forest and at Exmoor was an amazing experience. Seeing the heron flying was an amazing experience. Splashing through the river, tramping through the forest, singing. All of those things were experiences that connect them to nature forever. I hope that we not just tolerate that, we welcome it, engage with it, support arts and culture in our national parks, support sports in our national parks. All of those things are about those spaces belonging to everyone. We must protect the national parks. They are part of our natural capital. They are an important part of our environmental protections. But the second purpose of parks about connecting people to nature is one we need to do more work on. Not just for those who live in the parks, for those who live near the parks and maybe do not have that access to green and blue spaces. And we have to, in 70 years, in fact not in 70 years, in 7 years, in fact not in 7 years, in 7 months, we need to change the dial on racism, misogyny, homophobia, class-based bias that stops people entering our national parks. We need to stop pretending that doesn't exist. So what I want is, in 70 years, 7 years, 7 months, all of us to think about how the national parks can belong to everybody, because they are a national resource. That's the definition. They belong to everybody, and a park is a place that is protected and has amenities that allows it to belong to everybody. So in 70 years' time, I want national parks and youth hostels to still be working together, to be working together on getting everybody into the national parks in a safe and sustainable way. But I want us to look at how we can do that so that children can run through national parks with each other, connect to other children, connect to young people, and to connect to nature.
And in the next 70 years, I see national parks to be thriving, for wildlife to be thriving even more than it does, for communities and villages to thrive even more than they are, and for landscapes too as well. Now, who are national parks for? For me, it's quite simple. National parks are for anyone and everyone, regardless of your ethnicity, your religion, your culture. Nature doesn't discriminate, and I think that's a really important message to remember. Particularly because these landscapes are here and they are free and they are here to be explored and here to be experienced. For me, national parks epitomise freedom, and they always allow me to gain perspective in life. So therefore I think the feelings associated with being in these natural places will never change. I think they already encapsulate the mind, they already make you want to go back and experience it even more, and that's the beauty of national parks. And it's a great way to get out of day-to-day, modern day busyness, stress, everything like that. With regards to accessibility, obviously it relies on personal situations. A lot of people have the ability to drive to where they want to go, but a lot of people do rely on buses and public transport, which is a bit of an issue with regards to accessibility in the parks. A lot of parks have spots which aren't as accessible by public transport as they are by car. So I think going ahead in the future, this is also a really important thing to improve on in order to allow everyone to experience these places and everyone to get to where they want to go safely and really have positive experiences in these places too. I think national parks in the next 70 years have a lot of things that already exist now, a lot of feelings, a lot of experiences, but there's also a lot of things that we do need to work on.
I very much hope national parks for the future will continue to be the inspiration for people that they are at the moment, particularly for the new visitors that came to visit the national park following the release of lockdowns from the pandemic. I really hope they'll grow and get to learn to love and nurture their national parks for the future. They'll also be able to move around in a much more climate-friendly manner, with more public transport, all electrified, and of course lots of great options for active travel, particularly cycling and walking, on spaces that are away from roads, safe to use and easy to access for everybody. I also hope that our national parks will be properly adapted and resilient to the effects of climate change that we're already beginning to see in the parks and here in the lakes. That means that we can cope with the increasing amount of rainfall that we'll have. They'll sound richer in wildlife than they are now, whilst at the same time retaining the very best of our traditional agriculture. I think the future is bright for our national parks in this nation, and I very much hope that the government and the whole of the public in this country continue to support them.